I've noticed a couple of posts, and every kicker goes through this is trialing out kicking tee. So I want to hear the journey from your cone all the way up to, obviously we've got you on the RB Vortex low cut now, which is epic to see. But what's been the journey? How did you get there?
Yeah, as I said earlier, it was an interesting one. So I didn't even have my kicking tee. Didn't have one. I couldn't be going out and playing a European game with a kicking cone and looking crazy. So that was, yeah, a guy from school who I was actually his prefect and all. So we went full circle. He gave me his kicking tee, his spare kicking tee, and that was it. I didn't really know what made it special, what was good about it, but it was working. So I used that. So one of just the black telescopic tees, and it went well for me. I was kicking really well. I think one season up mid 80s or low 80s, and the tee was really good. But I had one incident that season where it was very embarrassing. So we were playing Gloucester, and we were down to 13 men. So I went for a long range, like 45, 50-meter penalty, and wanting to waste time because I wanted players back on the field. And I'd say about 55 seconds into my kick, I was trying to use the whole minute. As I was about to walk up to kick the ball, I'd started my run up, the ball fell off the tee. And when I went to swing on it, the ball was on the floor. So it goes straight down at the miss. But I was actually kicking really well in that game. So I thought I would have gotten it. So I just started realizing, a little bit like Garbisi at the moment, that every now and again the ball would fall off the tee, which heightened my anxiety before the kick, which is definitely something I don't want to worry about. I don't want to worry about the ball sitting correctly on the tee when I'm about to take a kick. So that summer, I found your RB Vortex low cutting tee, and I started kicking with it, and I realized it was essentially the exact same height, but the ball sat way cleaner on the tee, no wobble, as I said, really clean. So I started kicking with that, kicked really well all summer. And what do? I go and miss my first kick with it in the first game of the season. But my mentality was, John, do not blame the kicking tee. You've kicked really well all summer. It would be quite common for a kicker to go bin and throw straight in the bin just because they missed the kick. And it was an easy enough kick as well. But I put it down to just nerves and lack of match practice. So I stuck with it in that season. I think I heightened my percentage again by 2 or 3%. And I just knew the way it sat on the tee, just for my head as much as my actual kicking ability, it was just the right kicking tee for me. And that was another progression that I made, which when my kicking was going really, really well, some people, as kickers, one of the biggest issue I have with kickers is that they just do the same thing all the time. I think because I got into it so late, I'm always trying to find a new way to do things, and I want to do something different. I want to push another percent or two. Whereas I find with kickers, I'll ask them questions. They go, "Oh, sure, that's always what I've done." I just think it's crazy. Oh, what do you mean? Oh, you've always been a 75% goal kicker. Oh, well, just keep doing that then. Whereas I find I just always want to try and push it. And was it changing kicking tee? Give me 2 more percent? Yeah, it did. And I could have easily binned it and gone back to what was comfortable, but I knew my rationale and reasoning behind changing was correct, and that I was going to stick to it.
Yeah, well, I'm pleased that you stuck with it, and it's great you didn't just chuck the kicking tee in the bin after that first kick. But I also think I really encourage. I always have obviously a lot of different kicking tees in the bag, but if you are set on one like the low cut or the mid cut, I often get a kicker to have 5 kicks with the high cut, because then all of a sudden they learn why they enjoy the mid cut, what that strike feels like, why it's a little bit slicey, more slice in it because it's higher. So you actually get that nice feel and learning through your foot of, oh right, this is why I use this. This is what I enjoy, and the consistency. You being obviously over in Ireland, there's a lot of low T kickers. That green one, I think Sexton uses, and the Gilbert. Did you have coaches have a crack at that, and also with the foot down technique, the Dave Allred style, and all that? Did you play around with that style?
I actually didn't really. I know it is quite common here, and it's nearly because of Johnny Wilkinson.
Mm.
It's nearly like a rite of passage for kickers. I found it they'd nearly look down on you for not using those kickers or those kicking tees. I'd find sometimes, but again, I just went back to what was working for me. I find now, as the years have gone by and I understand kicking so much, I just feel like, yes, Johnny Wilkinson was one of the best kickers ever, and that worked for him. But he was also one of the hardest workers. And if I was to say which type of tee would suit just a normal kicker or a club level kicker in our weather conditions, this is what comes into play. Johnny Wilkinson was playing in stadiums which are covered from a lot of wind. I'm talking people playing in Galway, playing in Belfast, when the wind is horrific and you're playing on fields that aren't great. I feel like a tee that you can punch ball in wind, which is like a low cut, medium cut, is vital for me. It's an essential for the wind and weather we get. Whereas I find people with the Gilbert tees, if they don't hit it purely, they can't punch the ball into the wind and they struggle when it gets bad. So I think for the normal average kicker, for me, that's a better tee to use because of the ability to punch in our wind and weather.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it. Obviously, from not playing on in that poor conditions and punching into the wind. I also think that the style of tee, like the Vortexes, is in the Gilbert telescopic tees, whatever, is when you're young. It's a slightly easier tee to get the ball off the ground and just have an enjoyable kick at goal. I feel like it's just a slightly more forgiving style of kick.